Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to this bonus edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this podcast, what I want to talk about is, what did I want to be when I grew up? And I came to this topic because the other day I was driving our daughter, Skylar, to school. Skylar's, at the time of this recording, she's about to be 10 years old, right? She's the youngest of our children, the only girl. And we were riding and, we're just listening to music or whatever. And she says, hey, Daddy, I got a question. And she does this all the time. Hey, Daddy, I got a question. So when she says, hey, Daddy, I got a question, that means, okay, she's really about to ask me something that she really wants to know the answer to. And so she said, hey, Daddy, I got a question. And I said, yes. What's your question? She said, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? And it made me think, because we weren't really talking about, anything in particular. I think we were talking about school prior to that. But, she's very inquisitive and much like her father, she likes to ask questions and she wants her questions answered. So it made me think about really what I wanted to be when I, became an adult. And the short answer is I really didn't know, because honestly, I didn't spend a lot of time worrying about what I was going to be when I was going to be an adult, because I was so focused on being a kid. I had so much fun being a kid. Like, you just wanted to be a kid forever. You didn't, at that particular time in the 80s, and then as I moved into the 90s, nobody wanted to be I didn't want to be grown. I wanted to stay a kid. But it got me to thinking about, my choices and career paths or what have you. And so I gave her the short version of the story that I'm about to tell y'all. First of all, there's nobody that could have told me that I would have spent probably, I guess this year would probably make 20 years in finance, in the mortgage industry in particular. I mean, I would not have guessed that I would have built a career out of this, because finance wasn't my thing. In fact, I hated finance. You're listening to the guy who took financial management at South Carolina State twice. And the reason why I took financial management twice at South Carolina State University is because I failed it the first time. It's kind of hard to pass a class if you don't go to class. I hated financial management. And it wasn't like it was hard, but it was just I was, a full disclosure, I was a marketing major, right? So I didn't, I knew that stuff, I had to take those prerequisites, but still, anything outside of marketing classes, I really didn't like in particular. And I'll touch on that more in just a second. But no, I would have never guessed that I would have ended up in finance. But when I was probably Skylar's age, and, the subsequent years after that, I wanted to be something else. So at the age of, let's say 10, you couldn't have said, well, hey, Kyle, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be in finance. No, I want to be in business. No, I would have never guessed that. But I distinctly remember when I was about her age, one thing I wanted to be was a teacher. I thought teachers were cool. I mean, think about it like this. If you had a dope elementary school experience, you probably had a dope teacher or two. And I had some great teachers, Miss Phillips, Miss Warren, and my favorite teacher of them all, Miss Harris. Miss Harris taught me in the 4th grade, and she was a family friend. We went to church together, and she was my all-time favorite teacher. And even to this day, when I see her, I still give her love. She is the sweetest thing on the face of the earth. The greatest teacher. She's the greatest teacher of all time, in my opinion. Ironically enough, 4th grade was the last grade that I got all A's. But yeah, just, I wanted to be a teacher. I was heavily influenced by teachers like Miss Harris and my gym teacher, whose name I just cannot remember. I think it's Mr. Davis. I think that's what his name was. But anyway, I wanted to be a teacher. I thought, teaching would be cool. Interacting with students and being able to influence them in the way that they think and the way that they learn. Teachers like Miss Harris made coming to school fun, and school was always fun in elementary school. School was fun up until I got to middle school, because I still couldn't figure out why X plus Y equals Z. That shit makes no sense to me, and it still does to this day. And I mean, I hate to break it to anyone listening that's very young, but you'll never see that shit again in your life. Unless you're an architect. Nobody's going to ever ask you about the Pythagorean theorem and why X plus Y equals Z. It makes no sense. If you can add and subtract, multiply and divide, you should be okay in life as far as math is concerned. But that's beside the point. But yeah, I wanted to be a teacher at that particular age. And there was one problem with me becoming a teacher. Actually, 2 things. The first thing was, I remember one day we were headed to the cafeteria as a class, and we were in a single file line, because you had to walk the halls in a single file line. And this particular day, I was the line leader, which was, back in my day, it was big shit to be the line leader in the class. So I'm leading the class, leading my 4th grade class to the lunchroom. And as we are walking towards the lunchroom, we walk past this door, and on the door there's a panel on the door that says Teachers Lounge. And I thought the Teachers Lounge was like the coolest place that you would ever want to be, because this is where the teachers hung out. And every now and then you could be walking down the hall and you would see that Teachers Lounge door open, and you would hear them in there talking. It was mostly the ladies. You would hear them in there talking, and they just seemed to be having such a good time. And it seemed like the place that you would want to be, the Teachers Lounge. I mean, that's every time I walked past that door and that door swung open, I would see some of my favorite teachers in there just sitting back, kicking it. And I would just get a brief glimpse as to, who they were and what they were doing when they weren't teaching. On this particular day, the door flung open as one teacher was walking in, and I saw at least 5 or 6 teachers in there, and they were smoking. And one had a drink in her hand. I don't know what was in the drink. I mean, I was in the 4th grade. I don't know. I didn't know, much about beer and liquor. But looking back on it now, I'm pretty sure she was drinking vodka. Because she wasn't holding it like she was drinking a Sprite. And they were in there smoking cigarettes and talking shit. And in the 10 seconds that I was able to glance in there and smell that smoke, I got completely turned off by the Teachers Lounge. And I said, nah, I don't think I want to be a teacher. Because maybe the Teachers Lounge ain't as cool as I thought it was. And then the second reason why I realized that I didn't want to be a teacher was something that actually became quite obvious to me. I didn't like kids. I mean, I like the people in my class for the most part, but I just kind of looked around. I'm like, do I really want to deal with people, with these little brats with these bad attitudes and, snotty noses and all kind of stuff? Nah, I didn't want to do that. Hell no. So probably by the time I left elementary school, I realized that I was not going to be a teacher once I grew up. the second career move that I had was I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to be a veterinarian because at that particular time in my life, and even to this day, I love animals. Grew up, had dogs, had a cat once named Spunky, which I hated. I mean, he wasn't my cat; he's my cousin's cat. But my cousin lived with us, so there you go. But had fish, and just I had a love for animals. I loved snakes as well. So I figured, well, hey, what better way for me to get a snake would be to become a veterinarian. And I ran this idea past my mom, like, hey, Mom, I want at some point in time to become a veterinarian, and I think I should have a pet snake. And my mom proceeded to tell me, hell no. And not only did she say hell no, but she said, you're not bringing no snakes in this house. So that crushed that dream. And so, but I still kind of held on to the idea that I could possibly be a veterinarian. And then by the time I got to high school, I had to let that dream go for one simple reason. I hated science. Science sucked. Biology sucked. I wish I had more thumbs so I could give it more thumbs down, because biology was terrible. It's trash. So yeah, I kind of quickly realized, like, you can't be a veterinarian if you don't really like science. And if you're not really that fond of math, you're probably not going to go the veterinarian spot. So that was career choice number 2 out the window. By the time I got to the end of high school, going into college, into my freshman year, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to major in, right? I'd already accepted my position to go to South Carolina State University. And so I had to declare a major. I wanted to declare a major before I stepped on the campus. So I wasn't sure, and I was talking to some people. I talked to my dad, and my dad was like, well, hey, I have a friend who's, he's an accountant. He can come by and talk to you about business and such and such. I was like, okay. So the guy comes by, and we start talking or whatever. And he's telling me, he said, man, I think you'd be a great accountant because you're sharp, you're witty, you're blah, 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 blah. And I was still in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, as long as X plus Y doesn't equal Z, I'm okay. And so subsequently, when I enrolled at South Carolina State University, I put down that I wanted to be an accountant because it, from what he told me, it sounded pretty easy. And then I realized I hated accounting. I realized I really hated accounting. And that was the first semester of my freshman year. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Because I saw all of the other classes that you have to take. And even though, again, I was very fond of the School of Business, Belcher Hall, that's, one of my favorite places to be on campus. I absolutely hated macro and microeconomics. I would rather watch two roaches race than to ever sit in another macro or micro class. And I kid you not, I earned the C's that I got. Cheated a couple of times, but I earned the C's that I got. But nonetheless, I realized quickly after, like I said, midway through my freshman year, that accounting wasn't going to be it. So I did some more research, started, asking some questions, and I settled on marketing. And marketing really fit me and my desires and my plans. So, that's where it was. It was like, okay, well, I'll just, go into marketing. And I really started thinking about international marketing, but one problem. I only took 2 years of Spanish, right? So I don't, Like if you speak to me in Spanish, I could understand you, but you would have to talk to me like this for me to understand. So, and nobody speaks Spanish like that. And I always said I would go back and, take more courses and become fluent in Spanish, and it never happened. So, that kind of went out of the window too, but settled on marketing, got a marketing degree from South Carolina State University. Actually, I have a minor in broadcasting. But, full disclosure, never had a marketing job after graduation. Well, no, I take that back. I worked for the phone company. Was it Bell South? It's now AT&T, but I worked for Bell South. I did a little marketing for them, but nothing major. But, the idea of having a big marketing job and, sitting behind a desk, with a corner office and, taking trips all across the country on business, that never happened. But I think the biggest thing that I took away from my experiences in trying to figure out what it was that I was going to be once I grew up was my experience at South Carolina State taught me to be one thing: a hustler. And that's exactly what I became, a hustler. Not a hustler in the sense of peddling pharmaceuticals throughout the world, but a hustler in a sense of being able to be resourceful. I think that's, and while it's no knock on anybody else, I think that's one of the biggest things that you take away from going to an HBCU, a historically black college and university. For me, it was South Carolina State University, but it doesn't matter if it's SC State, Howard, Grambling, Southern, Alabama A&M, or Mississippi Valley State. It doesn't matter. The one thing that you're taught is how to be resourceful, and that's a part of being a hustler. And I think that's bred within you, and you learn how to make the most of what you have, because sometimes you may not have everything. I might have one stick, and there might be another stick over here, but I have to put these, all of the sticks together to make something happen, to build a house. And you find a way. You either find a way or make a way. That's a famous saying that you hear on a lot of HBCU campuses. But yeah, it taught me to be resourceful, and it taught me how to be a hustler. So in a sense, while my job title doesn't say, director of finance, or it doesn't say financial hustler, in essence, that's what I grew up to become, a hustler. And the reality is, for as much as I've carved out a pretty nice career, if I do say so myself, I've managed to earn a decent living. Contrary to what my boy King Germ from the Frocast thinks, I'm broke. I ain't got no money. That's right. All my money goes to my kids and my wife. But yeah, it's I've been able to carve out a nice career, and I would not have thought in the 70s or the 80s or even in the 90s that this would have been something that I would have, been able to do. But, again, it goes back to my teachings and things that I learned at South Carolina State was to be resourceful, to be a hustler. And so, ultimately, there are other things that I want to do with my career. So, to answer Skylar's question, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, because in a lot of ways, I'm still a kid. That's going to do it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for checking out this bonus edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. This podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. From time to time this year, we will drop bonus coverage just like this one on Sundays at midnight. That's going to do it for me. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.